Champions Mojo is part of the CG Sports Network.
Welcome to the award-winning Champions Mojo, hosted by two world record-holding athletes and health, life, and leadership coaches. Be inspired as you listen to Conversations with Champions. And now, your hosts, Kelly Pallas and Maria Parker.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Champions Mojo podcast. And as usual, I am co-hosting with Maria Parker. Hello, Maria.
Hi, Kelly. So great to be with you today. I'm excited.
Yes, today we have such an awesome topic, and we're going to start out by making it funny and calling it Stinkin Thinkin, but actually it can be pretty darn serious. And if one were to continually have negative thoughts, stinkin' thinking, and making these neural pathways that are negative, they can cause major depression and anxiety lots of problems. So it's a
problems in relationships.
Topic.
Yeah, lots of problems.
But it can cause everything from just bad performance to all the way to serious depression. So we all do stinkin' thinking, as you and I like to call it, just for fun. And there are 10 cognitive distortions, which were discovered or created, founded by an MD, a Dr. Aaron T. Beck, who is a psychiatrist, and he really studied how these cognitive distortions affect our lives and worked out a therapy, which you know well, called cognitive behavior therapy, which is one of the most valuable tools in changing our thinking.
Yeah, I think it's one of the only therapies that has really shown time and time again to be effective. And so, you know, it's funny that counselors use it. And when I got my degree in counseling, they taught it to us, and I used it. And it's, you know, it is effective, but it's funny that it's not discussed more. And I mean, I think if we started every time we were feeling anxious or depressed or having a problem, if we started asking ourselves what was our cognitive distortion, we'd all be in a better place. So, but anyway, we're going to get to the specifics of it.
Yes. And, you know, as someone who I've said here on the podcast many times, I have suffered with both depression and anxiety. And when I first heard of cognitive behavior therapy, and I think a lot of people feel this way, it's like, oh no, just another therapy. Sounds like a lot of work. I don't really want to, you know, I just want to take a pill and see if that'll make my depression go away. But it's really so simple. And it is a matter of just examining your thoughts. And there is a great app called the Thought Diary. We will put it in the show notes that helps you look at it pops up the 10 most common cognitive distortions. But let's just start with, by alternating these. The number one, and these are not in any particular order, like one may use, someone might use 3 of them all the time, or someone might use 1 of them all the time, or someone might use 10 of them all the time. Sometimes I use the Thought Diary app all the time. And sometimes I have a thought and I'll put it in the Thought Diary. And then when you put that thought in, because you're supposed to examine your thinking, these 10 distortions will pop up, and then it leaves little check boxes. So is this thought X, Y, Z, P, D, Q? Like, is it all these things? And I'll check. And there have been times when it's like, 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of overlap between them too. So, and you'll see
there are a lot of overlap in between them. But so the first one in no particular order is overgeneralization. And this happens when you kind of make this rule after a single event or maybe a series of coincidences, and the word always or never frequently, appears in that sentence. Like, I never win, or, I ask girls out and they never go out with me, or Mark and I use this all the time. He will always catch me, and I'm using the always word. He will always catch me when I say you always or you never. So I think overgeneralization is really a strong one, where it's usually obviously used in the negative, versus like, boy, I always win, or boy, I'm always smart, or I'm always, the nicest person. But it's usually I'm never, or I always fail.
Right. I think that it's a good caveat that overgeneralization on the positive side is probably not a bad thing. But I loved how you brought up your relationship with Mark, because I think overgeneralization is one of those kind of rules that good couples who have lasting relationships stay away from. And I do it all the time with Jim, and we do catch each other on it. If you're having a disagreement or an argument, you should never say always, or you always do that. The other day, Jim and I were sitting out having a cup of coffee, and I asked him a question, and he said, you always, ask me that question, and I remember feeling stung whether or not it was true. I said, well, wait a minute, always, never. And he said, oh, you're right. So this time, so in relationship, this is great. So you really need to deal with the issue or the thing at hand. But in general, in your life, you can tend, and the longer you go down the same road, the deeper it gets in your neural pathways. If you think to yourself, I always get C's in calculus, I'm just a C calculus, that it will not help you to do better in C, or I never, whatever, I never win these races. I can find myself doing this with my cycling, because I'm right in the middle of my little team group, and I had a race last night, and at the end I finished right in the middle, and I thought, I'm never going to get better, which is of course not true. I'm getting better, and always, never are always or never good things to say.
Exactly.
Number 2 is mental filters, and a mental filter is an opposite overgeneralization, but with the same negative outcome. Instead of taking one small event and generalizing it inappropriately, the mental filter takes one small event and focuses on it exclusively, filtering out anything else. Can you give me an example of that, Kelly?
Yeah, I think it's like it says, it's the opposite of generalization. Like, so if you go back to a relationship or something that you've done, like if Mark only cleans the kitchen once a week, I might, or he cleans the kitchen 3 times a week, but I'm telling him, you don't do anything around the house. And then he'll say, so I'm mentally filtering out that he cleans the kitchen 3 times a week. And I see this happening all the time in our relationship where, I know what it was. It was exactly this the other day. I said, you never cook dinners. I'm the one that cooks dinners. And so I'm mentally filtering. Do you know what he said to me? Do you realize, honey, that I made you breakfast every morning this week? And I went, oh, you did? Oh my gosh. And he makes good breakfast, like really nice omelets or French toast or something. So I mentally filtered that. And but these we're talking about relationships, but I think these are most important in
the way
your own talking with yourself. This is stinkin' thinking. And that would be, well, can you give an example of your own mental thinking right there?
Sure. So mental filters is basically ignoring evidence to the contrary. So to use it back to my racing, my mental filter is like the times that I've won in the race, I ignore them. I only focus, I filter out all the good performances I've had. I think another example in terms of, I think in terms of negative things is I can tell myself when I feel discouraged, oh, I haven't eaten anything good today. I've only eaten junk food or whatever. And of course that's not true. I had, some raspberries in there, so,
right.
So the mental filter, it's ignoring evidence to the contrary of your bad story or your maybe inaccurate story.
Yeah. And number 3, and the way Dr. Beck created these, and these are his 10, and he is the father of cognitive behavior therapy and cognitive distortions, is so maybe you'll identify more with number 3, even though I think it's super similar to number 2, and that's discounting the positives, which is just ignoring or invalidating good things that happen to you. And I know that everyone knows someone that will just like, they'll have a whole day that went great, and then they may have something bad happen at the end of the day, and it's like, oh, they've ignored every good thing that happened that day and just focused on, well, how was your day, honey? Oh my gosh, I got the traffic on the way home was just terrible, and it's just, then you kind of just spin into that. So it's very similar to mental filtering, but if it resonates with you, it's discounting the positives.
Right. And we know people, I tend to be very optimistic, but we all know people who they're going to see the dark side. And I call those people sort of alarm bees, or, in the beehive, there's always bees that they're guard bees. And so their job is to see danger and to warn everybody else. And also they're more likely to sting you. And so, but I think it's adaptive, but I think it's natural for some people particularly to discount positive because they see the negative, and the negative is bigger. And the news does this all the time. And, lately I've been on just this anti-media kick because, for instance, here you could tell a story about the pandemic. We're in the pandemic. You could talk about the number of people who died today, but you could also tell a story about how the percentage of people dying from COVID is drastically dropping, and the treatments are improving tremendously. But the media definitely discounts the positive. They do, because we're adapted to find danger everywhere. The story that you hear is negative, and it does a number to your psyche and your gut.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great example of that, Maria, for sure.
Okay. So the fourth one is, I love this one, jumping to conclusions. So there's 2 ways to jump to conclusions: mind reading, and I'm terrible about this, when you think someone is going to react to it in a particular way, or you believe someone is thinking things that they aren't; or fortune telling, when you predict events will unfold in a particular way, often to avoid trying something difficult. So, for instance, fortune telling is like, I'm not going to, what would be a good example? I'm not going to try this new hobby or a sport. I'll say a sport because let's talk about maybe snowboarding. I'm not going to try snowboarding because what's going to happen. I'm going to fall. I'm going to break my leg. It might be a really serious break, and I'm going to be crippled for the rest of my life. But mind reading is the one I do all the time, where I assume that people are thinking things, or they're going to react in a certain way, and I don't just give them a chance to react and observe their reaction. So this happens, of course, in my relationship, where I'm like, I'm not going to run this by Jim because he's not going to like it. But, I don't know, I got to give him a chance. So I love this. This is a very, very common cognitive distortion that has us leaping forward and thinking, bad things before they actually happen. Do you have an example of one like this?
Oh, I think this is a great one when you're negatively. I know we talk about speaking to groups or coaching people, or, that kind of thing. And they say that, people have a harder fear or a worse fear of death than they do of
public speaking.
I'm sorry, a worse fear of public speaking than they do of death.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's when you're mind reading, oh my gosh, I'm speaking. What are people going to think of me? What, so you're reading into people's minds that, oh, I don't think they liked me. Mm-hmm. It's a negative way to go through life when you're interacting with people. And I think that may be a lot of social anxiety, that people jump to conclusions when they're meeting new people and they're reading their minds, like, oh, somebody's, that she turned away, when it might be, well, it's something going on with that person versus their own, versus something that has to do with you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is, you alluded to it. I think it's very common in young, particularly, teenagers, and, you're so attuned to your social group that you are over attuned. And, my mother used to say, and this is such great wisdom, nobody really cares about you. They only really care about themselves.
So true. It's so true.
So when you're mind reading and you're thinking that they're judging you, they're probably not. They're probably thinking about their dinner plans. So,
yeah.
But fortune telling too, and predicting, bad events. I mean, again, I think this, there's overlap, but, we're evolved to worry, to predict possible negative outcomes. And, so we tend to blow those up and tell ourselves, oh, something terrible is going to happen. I left the door open. Oh, this is a great story. So yesterday we went for a bike ride, and we came back. We stopped and bought some things. It was a beautiful bike ride, and we bought some things and put them in our panniers. We got back, and Jim said, oh, I've dropped my wallet. So he had put his wallet in his pants, and they fell out somewhere on the 6 mile, bike ride. And so, that's going to be, terrible. Somebody's going to get my wallet. They're going to steal my credit cards, blah, blah, blah. So we spent the next hour looking for the wallet, and we didn't find it, but we got back home and looked back in the pannier, and there it was. So, but my point about that is that we could have saved ourselves a lot of grief if we had just said, well, if we looked more carefully in the pannier, but then if we just said, you know what, we don't know what's going to happen, and if somebody finds it, they'll probably just turn it into the police or try to contact us. So fortune telling and predicting events in a negative way is an easy trap to fall into.
Yes, that's true. Absolutely true. So Maria, number 5 is magnification, which is exaggerating the importance of shortcomings and problems while minimizing the importance of the desirable qualities. So, this is very, this is stinking thinking when, our bodies are aging or our faces are aging or something. And, I think it's a great term, magnification, because when you look in the mirror, you're kind of magnifying, oh, I've got gray hair, or I've got my skin isn't as nice as it was, or I'm getting a paunch, or, you're just talking negatively to yourself when, if you focus, you're exaggerating those shortcomings, and they could be with anything. They could be with your job or with, your mothering skills or your fathering skills or whatever it is, but you're minimizing those qualities of importance. Like, I'm going to have a big birthday this year in 2021. And I could look and say, gosh, I'm fit for my age. And but I'm minimizing those desirable qualities of, I'm more educated, I'm more experienced, I'm wiser versus, boy, my skin isn't as nice, or, I don't have my tummy's not as flat as it was, or, all those things. So I think that's just magnification of those negatives can really put you in a bad place.
I'm so glad you brought up the example of aging, because I think that's been really hard for me. And we do these video champions mojos, and I look at it like, well, look at that. I mean, your mom used to say, and I love this, when I look in the mirror, I'm so surprised at what I see, because in my mind, I'm that 25-year-old beauty. And so that's kind of how it is. As you age, you in your mind, you're still looking 25, 30, and then you look and, you're got your nearly 60 eyes and skin and so forth. So, but that's but we tend to be drawn, again, I think, and this is why it's a distortion, because really I look pretty good, for this age, and so do you. I mean, it's like, I'm not, instead of looking at the qualities like that are good, it's being focused in on the negative. And it's really easy to do in so many things, especially, if you're feeling a little insecure, and that's why it's an effort to say, okay, if I'm feeling bad, or if I'm having an anxious feeling or a depressed feeling, what am I maximizing and what am I minimizing? And, one of the things in my faith that I've thought a lot about is this idea that, that everything that happens to you, there's an opportunity for something really good to come out of it. And so thinking about that helps me to maximize the positive and the hopeful and minimize the worry and the negative. So anyway, yeah, it's magnification is great. And we all do it. If you find yourself feeling bad, and think about your thought. And I think a large or frequent cognitive distortion is magnifying the negative.
Yes, yes. And Maria, we're halfway through these 10 with you're about to do number 6. And I want to encourage people to hang on. We're going to get to all 10, and then we're going to do a really fun exercise where Maria and I are going to take each of our negative thoughts, we're going to pull one at random out of our Stinkin Thinkin, and we're going to work a cognitive behavior therapy exercise where we go through it, we check which behavior it is, and then we reverse it, and then we come up with a new plan, and then we test how we feel. So that's really how cognitive behavior therapy works. But let's identify the distortions first, and then we'll do that.
Okay, so number 6 is emotional reasoning. It's a way of judging yourself or your circumstances based on your emotions. So if if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you're feeling bad, and then you spill the coffee, you'd say to yourself, "Oh, I'm having a terrible day. This is a bad day." That's based on my emotion or my negative feelings about the day, rather than based on the facts that, yes, the sun came up and and all of my family is healthy and things are really good. So emotion, it's hard to get away from your emotions, but realizing that your emotions are impacting your reasoning is a common cognitive distortion. Do you have?
Yeah, I love this one. I think this one is probably one of the most frequent and powerful distortions that we have. So when you're really disappointed in something, and that is not the time to make a big decision about something. Like they say, never make big decisions when you're in the middle of a divorce, or you're in the middle of a transition, or you're in the middle of something sad, or even something great, because you might decide in your most joyful moment that, hey, I've always wanted to go skydiving and that's what I'm going to do. Or you may decide that, oh, I can never do that. I'm never going to write a book because I'm in a bad mood right now. And that was your one opportunity to, find out what you were going to, make a plan with someone. So I really think this is a good one, that we get in these emotional states, and then we tell ourselves, like, I think it's, spilling your coffee is one thing, but having a fight with your spouse, and then it can snowball into going into the mirror and looking and saying, gosh, I'm a fat loser, or whatever. So I really think that we have to check our emotions and make sure that what we're thinking is not based on our emotions. So I like this one for the power that it has over us and how it's very reversible.
Yeah, just awareness.
Yeah. So number 7 is a should statement. And these are so familiar to us. We call this shoulding all over yourself. And they're self-defeating because we often will emphasize unattainable standards.
Yep.
And then we fall short of our own, ideas and goals. And then we this creates, feelings of self-doubt and feelings of self-worth, and even could possibly, depending on how far you took it, could create panic and anxiety. So should statements, Maria, I think you're pretty familiar with should statements.
Yeah, my life is full of shoulds. I remember when I learned about this in counseling school, just thinking, oh my gosh, this is me. This is my favorite cognitive distortion, because just a lot of this is, kind of family of origin stuff. But yeah, I mean, I grew up trying to be perfect and righteous. And so my life is full of shoulds. And of course, it's unattainable. I can't do everything good that pops into my mind. So it'll be fun to work on that cognitive distortion. I've been working on it, a lot. It's like, oh, you're shoulding this,
Yeah.
Just because you thought of that doesn't mean you have to do it. Okay,
Yes.
so the number 8 is labeling. Labeling is a cognitive distortion that involves making a judgment about yourself or someone else as a person, rather than seeing the behavior as something the person did that doesn't define them as an individual. So obviously you're lazy, right? I mean, that's not who you are. That's a label, and it can really impact how you think about yourself or person if you give yourself a label. I'm not athletic. That's a label. That does not, it's a generalization, and it's a distortion, because anybody can be an athlete. Anybody can be athletic. So I love labeling too. It's an oversimplification, basically.
Yes, yeah, that is a really good one. And inversely, you can use labeling as a positive thing, which we do. Like, it is I think it's one of the pillars of coaching people is, like, you became an athlete. I'm the kind of person that gets up early. I'm the kind of person that loves speaking in front of groups. I'm the kind of person that loves to eat healthy food, and exercise. So but normally we don't label ourselves like that. If we do, it's great. But the labeling we're talking about is judgment about ourselves or a person or a thing. And you're lazy, or you don't like to exercise. You don't like to eat healthy. Yeah. So yeah. I love that one. So number 9 is personalization and blame, where you blame yourself or someone else for a situation that in reality involved many factors out of your control. And I'm going to own this one huge. And again, in you guys knowing me through the podcast, I have suffered with my skin, and part of my depression, when I get in a flare or I have a bad skin day or an infection or something, I blame myself, Maria. I really say, I'm the one that used topical steroids. And Mark always is the voice of reason. He always says, the doctors told you to take it, told you it was safe enough to put on a baby. How can you blame yourself? But I do. And so then I'm like, oh, I always want to play the time machine game where I go back in time and I never took topical steroids. But, it's classic blaming ourselves for something that's really outside of our control. And I know when there are tragedies, we've talked about before, we have a suicide in our family. And I often think, what could I have called our sister-in-law more? Could I have reached out to her more? Could I have done something that week? It's just like, there are definitely different levels of personalization and blame, but it's, really factors that are out of your control.
Right. So yeah. So when something negative happens, you can, and you're feeling blue, you can check yourself and think, okay, am I taking, undue credit for this negative, or blaming myself for something that, and the problem is we're imperfect. And so we can always probably find some, aspect of our behavior or thoughts that, that weren't stellar, but taking the whole, so you see people do this all the time, and I do it, not so much anymore, but it's like, what, you're responsible for that? You have all, usually things are much more multifactorial. So anyway, I love that personalization and blames. Like, yeah, when I hear you talk about blaming yourself for taking the steroids, I mean, my eyes roll back in my head, because that seems so crazy. It wasn't your fault. You were a kid. Yeah. If we're going to blame anybody, let's blame your mom.
Let's blame my mom.
And that's not helpful either, of course. But
no, that's not helpful either.
And it's not really the dermatologist's fault either. Everybody was doing the best they could at the time. Laziness wasn't involved. So anyway.
Yes. Yeah. And it is also blaming someone else as well. So it's not just like, you may just continually blame your partner, your spouse, or your best friend, or, but all right, Maria, so you got the last
number
one.
10, all or nothing thinking. I love all or nothing thinking. It's there's a lot of overlap in these, but basically it's thinking that everything is going to be one way, or it's not going to go at all. And it's rare. That is never the truth. You know, it's never going to be that you're always going to fail, or you're never going to succeed, you know, or that something is always going to happen, you know, one way or another. It's just every single day or opportunity, things are going to be a little bit different. So if all or nothing thinking, I think maybe I am trying to think of a time that I do this where, you know, if I feel like I'm in a rut with the way, I guess in some of my interactions with Jim, you know, I think to myself, I always lose my temper. You know, I'm you know, I never, you know, it's, and so I'm, you know, I'm just an angry person, which is totally not true. I don't always, it's not all or nothing. I mean, lots of times I don't, lots of times I, you know, I hold my temper, or I don't say the negative things. So all or nothing is a great way to end. Kelly, do you have an example of all or nothing thinking?
Oh, all the time. I mean, it's like if we don't hit a certain number in our podcast this week, we're a failure.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's like you know, if I'm not able to run this week, then I'm a slouch, or you know, it's just like, I think it's really common. And you know, I wanted to go back to magnification, which is just another word for magnification, because I'm getting ready to think of this exercise that we're doing, and I'm like, wait a minute. My one that I think I do the most is catastrophizing.
Yes, that's right.
So catastrophizing is the same as magnification, where you're just totally discounting. You're only focusing on the one thing. So
right.
It's now time for the takeaways. Maria, you and I have heard the takeaways are the best part of the show.
That's right, Kelly, because the takeaways are curated information, which is what we give to our clients when we coach them.
If you would like to take your performance to the next level in health, life, or leadership, go to our website and schedule your free 30-minute consultation.
Yes, just click on our coaching page and book there. We're looking forward to bringing out the champion in you.
And now, the takeaways.
So Maria, that is the 10, and let's do our takeaways for this with the activity of doing a cognitive behavior exercise. So
okay.
All right. So the first, I'll read the first 5 just as a summary real quick. And then while we're reviewing these, Maria, let's be thinking of some stinkin' thinking that we can share, and we can coach each other on these.
Okay.
So the first 5 are overgeneralization, mental filters, discounting the positive, jumping to conclusions, magnification, or catastrophizing as another word for that.
Yeah, that's a great word. The second 5 are emotional reasoning, should statements, labeling, personalization and blame, and all or nothing thinking.
Okay, so Maria, would you like to, I don't mind going first, or you can go first.
I can go first.
So here's what I want to do. And I love this because I really do want this to be helpful to people. So I'm going to pull up my phone here with the app right here on my home screen. I'm on Do Not Disturb, but hopefully I'll still have my, so this is the thought diary. I don't know if people can see it. Probably not. No, there's too much light in here. So the thought diary is a beautiful little app, and it has diary thoughts. So there's a plus sign here. So I'm going to hit the plus sign, and it's going to say, do you want to make a gratitude journal entry? Do you want to check a thought, which is what we're going to be doing right now? How is your mood? Like if you're clocking your mood, and then the plus sign again is there. So
okay.
I'm going to check my thought. So I have this little screen that pops up, and it says, what negative thought are you having? And so then I would type that in. So what negative thought are you having, Maria?
So I love this because, and I like how they linked it with mood in the app, because generally you want to use this, and it's most productive when you're feeling bad somehow,
Yes.
whether it's anxious or depressed or overwhelmed or whatever. So for me, I'm going to start with this. I'm getting ready to travel, and I'm going to be leaving my husband for a couple of weeks. And one of the things that I do in our relationship that I love to do is I prepare almost all the meals, even the snacks. So like I'll just get them all out. And that's a pleasure for me. I like to do it because I like to eat. And so in my conversations with Jim, he said it'd be great if you could prepare a whole bunch of casseroles and put them in the freezer for the time you're gone. And I thought, yeah, I should do that. That'd be a really loving thing to do. But so the mood has been of like overwhelm and sort of annoyed and mad. And I was thinking like, why am I feeling annoyed with Jim? Why am I feeling kind of sad and overwhelmed? And I thought it's because
No.
Okay,
you have to give the thought. What is the thought?
The thought is I should go to the store. I should make a plan, go to the store and make a bunch of casseroles for Jim to eat while I'm gone.
Okay.
We already know what that is.
that is a neutral thought. You have to go beneath that. What is the negative thought that you're telling? How about this is the negative thought? I don't want to go to the store and make a bunch of casseroles.
No, the negative thought is, that's good. This is great. The negative thought is, Jim will be disappointed in me and not love me as much if I don't help him have food to eat by making these casseroles and putting them in the freezer.
There you go. That's the negative thought. Jim, my husband won't love me if I don't make these casseroles. Okay, so that's the negative thought.
Yeah.
So you would type that in and say, so you have to type it out. And then there's a beautiful, gosh, I wish I could show this on the screen, but it does. So there's a beautiful gigantic bar after you type your thought. And then it says, does your thought contain negative distortions? And you tap that, and then all 10 of those negative distortions come up, and you get to tap all of the distortions that apply. Tap all the distortions that apply. So, Maria, is that all or nothing thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. Or magnification. Yeah, he's not going to love me.
I
would say it's more magnification than all or nothing.
But no, you're gonna check them all. So it is all or nothing thinking.
So we're going through them one by one. Gotcha.
That's what you do. You go through, you tap them or not. Is it overgeneralization?
Maybe. No, I wouldn't say it's overgeneralization.
Okay. Is it jumping to conclusions?
Yes, absolutely.
Is it mind reading?
I'm mind reading, which is part of jumping to conclusions. Right?
Well, no, it's not part of. Yeah, it is. It is part of it. Is it fortune telling?
Not so much, but I'm reading Jim's.
Okay.
I'm reading Jim's mind.
Is it magnification of the negative?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's part of that in there. Absolutely.
It's not really catastrophizing, is it?
Well, in some sense, like, oh, he won't love me. Isn't that a catastrophe?
I guess it is.
It may not be to you, but it is to me.
You know what? I'll see, here's the thing, Maria, this is where we can differ. Ready? He's my brother, and I know that he would love me. I know I know that there's almost nothing that I could do that Jim wouldn't love me.
Which is true for me too, but
it's true for you too. That I'm trying to point out,
right,
that he loves you more than he loves me, and that I'm just trying to role model that for you.
Right. Gotcha.
Is it emotional reasoning?
I wouldn't say.
You know what, Maria? I'm going to go with, let's go deeper on this one so people can really see this. I think that you're feeling this because you have a lot on your plate. I know you're wearing a lot of hats, running, businesses, being a wife, being a sister to me, being a grandmother, a mother, all these things that you're doing. And I think that you are overwhelmed with kind of like I think it is somewhat emotional reasoning for you to be making this reasoning when you're tired. And I think tired is tired an emotion?
It's a physical state.
Yeah, but like, does being tired put you a little bit in a different state?
Yes, right. So exactly.
So
yeah.
I mean, I think if you were 100% rested and you didn't have all this on your plate, I don't know that you would be making the same assumptions. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, and I disagree with you because I know myself.
Okay, I was going to say
this is more based on
I was going to say, yeah.
my personal history than on being tired.
Okay. So then it's not emotional reasoning. But here we go. Is it a should or a must?
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
labeling.
Not
so much.
No.
Right?
Mm-mm.
Self-blaming.
Personalization and blame. Yeah, it is kind of in a way like I'm the only person in the world who can make Jim casseroles, and yeah.
I love that. Okay. All right. So we've gone through all of them. So now it has a beautiful screen that says, "How are you feeling?" And it asks you, how can you challenge that negative thought? So we're challenging the thought, Jim won't love me if I don't make him casseroles. And then, it'll be harmful to our relationship. How can you challenge that thought?
Yeah, so when you put it that way, it sounds so stupid. And that's the beauty of this. I mean, that you're using the app, but I think people need to know that they can do this, on their own. So clearly, I mean, anybody, once you articulate it, it's like so obvious. Jim's clearly going to love me whether or not I make him casseroles. I'm not the only person in the world who can make him casseroles. He can feed himself. So once you articulate it, even the first time I articulated with you, you said, well, what's the feeling? I was laughing to myself, like, Jim, like, not making casseroles. He may be a little disappointed, but then that's my greeting. I don't know that he'll be disappointed. He might be just as happy to go to the Green Turtle and get himself food every single day.
You might even have more fun and be like, get outside, and
it might be better for him.
Yeah, it might be better for him.
So it's articulating the feeling and then saying, oh, yeah, and realizing the distortion, the mistake. A distortion's just a mistake. It's like, no, it's probably not going to change the way he feels about me. And on the other hand, it might even be really good for him. I'm being negative. Like, I'm imagining him, digging around for food and not finding anything, but, maybe it'll be fine. On the other hand, it's not all or nothing either. I can just make him one casserole. I don't have to make him 5. So
right. Oh my gosh, this is so powerful.
It is,
Maria. I mean, this is so powerful. So you've challenged the thought by making the statement, that's ridiculous. Jim's going to love me. You're challenging that. Jim's going to love me if I don't make casseroles, right? You can see that. And then the alternative thought is, which you just said, which is, he may actually have a better week if I don't make him casseroles.
Right.
Okay, so that is beautiful.
Or I could just make him one casserole. I don't have to make him 20 or 5 or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Right.
There's and it's so freeing, and it just lifts your mood. The key here is to recognize the mood, the anxiety, and then dig out what's causing it. Okay, your turn.
Right.
I've been on the hot
Maria,
seat.
Then the app asks you, how are you feeling now? Better than before, about the same, or worse?
Oh, much better.
Much better. Yeah. So I want to just really, if people are really trying to recognize their cognitive distortions and learn CBT and get down into this, 2 interviews that I think have just rocked me are with Rebecca Soni and Erica Brown, when, Erica Brown was having, a really bad year adjusting to her freshman year. And she said she just monitored her thoughts. She really monitored her thoughts. And she was
so great.
We called her a PhD in changing her thoughts. And then Rebecca Soni said she was standing the Olympic final, just having terrible stinking thinking. And she turned herself around, set the world record, won the gold by examining her thoughts.
Right.
So we're really talking about examining your thoughts. Do you see how I'm trying to avoid you asking me what my
Yes,
stinking
yes,
thinking
I do
is?
see that. I do see that. Okay. So I just closed my blinds so you don't have to look at the lines in front of my face anymore. So we did me. I jumped right in there with both feet and it's kind of hard, this, the work, because, being authentic about my silly cognitive distortions around making, casseroles for my husband. I'm sure there are people out there laughing at that. But now you're on the hot spot, Kelly. It's your turn.
Yeah. So one thing that I think is really powerful about this app and this thing, and if, it's just one thought, it doesn't have to cure your whole life. It's just like, that is the way that you can become healthier and happier, is take one thought at a time. What is that one thought? And
That's
so
beautiful.
One thought that truly can put me in a bad place and just kind of spin me out of the present moment, and I might even cry saying it. I have not entered this into the app lately, but it's just been, I think it's building with my dad, your father-in-law, turning 91. And so my thought is, when my dad dies, I am going to fall completely apart. And it happened with my mom, and I just reeled for, I got sick when she died. I got sick, I got down. And I'm equally close, if not closer, with my dad. And, I talk with him every day. And so my thought is, I'm going to fall apart. I'm not going to be able to handle it when my dad dies.
And so what does falling apart specifically look like?
Just, I can catastrophize that. It's a catastrophe. Anxiety. My anxiety would go out of control, and I would potentially become depressed, which I'm not. That I would not be pursuing my passions. Boy, isn't this a fun podcast to listen to? If you're driving, pull over. I'm sorry, friends.
So what are the cognitive distortions around that?
Okay, let's see. Well, it's pretty easy. We can just go down the list. So if I popped up my app, so the thought is I would fall apart and
you get depressed.
I would get depressed. I would get anxious. I would stop doing the things I loved. I would stop serving people. I would stop helping people, which is important to me. So I think, so if I'm checking off all the cognitive distortions, I would say that I'm overgeneralizing.
How so?
I think it's kind of an always or never thing. Like, oh boy, if I fall apart, as I say, then I may still be able to, people are going to expect me to have a mourning period, and I can be sad. It's kind of, I'm overgeneralizing that. Boy, it's either all or nothing. I'm falling apart, or I'm either in bed in the fetal position, or I'm having to go out and just be my normal self. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I think that's,
even the words fall apart are kind of a magnification of, what happens when you're grieving. Like, literally, are you going to fall apart? Are your limbs going to go away from your body?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't think it's mental filtering. I don't think I'm, like filtering out something. I don't think I'm discounting the positive. I'm definitely jumping to conclusions. I'm definitely catastrophizing. I'm definitely emotionally reasoning. I mean, you want to hit a high emotion of sadness and fear and all that, and I'm making that decision that, I'm going to fall apart when I'm thinking about my dad dying. So
right,
it's like,
right.
I think it's definitely emotional reasoning. I think it might be a should statement, that hey, buck up, camper. There's no crying in swimming, and I should be strong. I should be able to, like I even have a dialogue with Mark. Like we talked about this on our walk last night. I said, oh gosh, I so often will call my dad when we're walking, and or when I'm walking alone normally. And I just had a really good conversation with my dad. I told Mark, I said, oh gosh, my dad's doing great. And, he's coming up on his 90th birthday and 91st birthday next month. And so I said, gosh, I'm just so worried about him. And, he's healthy and he's doing well, but he certainly, he has a lot of issues too.
He's very old. Yeah,
and he's 91. And so, so one of the things that I said out loud was, but he's 91, he's had a great life, and I know it's coming, I know it's coming. So it's like, Mark's like, honey, no matter when it comes, it's still going to hit you. So it's like, I'm still even trying to say I should be fine because I know it's coming. So I think it's a should statement. Labeling, am I labeling, making a judgment? I don't think I'm labeling, and I'm certainly not personalizing or blaming myself. So I've got quite a few.
So how do you counteract so that then you counteract those distortions? You argue them.
I think that I would argue it by saying that, I've really never fallen apart. I mean,
you didn't. Your perception is that you fell apart with your mother, but I was there and you didn't.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, like I did a lot of things that were not falling apart, from, taking care of my dad to moving him into assisted living to selling their house. I got a lot done. I still functioned.
And you cared for others too.
Yeah, I know. So I guess I would just say that I don't think that I've ever really fallen apart. So why would I fall apart now? If I didn't fall apart with the loss of my mother or all the other pile that we have, I mean, that's one of the things I worry about breast cancer coming back. Am I going to fall apart? I guess that's my thing. I don't want to fall apart, whatever.
So means. I think that's interesting. That word fall apart in your mind, is that getting into bed and not getting out? Like, what does that mean?
It's fetal position in bed, cover up over the head, just like.
And when have you ever done that?
I don't think I've ever done that.
So that's definitely overgeneralization.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I can do it for a day or a couple of hours,
sure.
But I've never done it for months at a time. So yeah. So I think just saying, so the challenge of that is BS, shut up, little negative voice in my head. I didn't do it. And so the alternative is, I'm going to allow myself to grieve when my dad is gone, and I've never fallen apart before, so I can handle it.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, and this is also not the same situation as with your mother, who took a steep decline, and you had to care for her, and then you couldn't really grieve until it was over. With your dad, I've noticed you're thinking about the fact that his days are numbered. And so you're sort of pre-grieving, which is not bad. That's a normal thing. So yeah, so it's not going to happen even the way it did with your mom. So that's great. Thanks for sharing that, Kelly.
I feel better.
Do you?
I feel better. Yeah. I mean, and that's the question that the app asks, do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Do you feel the same? And I feel better.
Yeah.
Because you know what? It's truly a cognitive distortion.
Right.
Yours was a cognitive distortion. So I think I hope that you guys, friends, have hung in here, because, challenge the thoughts, challenge the one thought at a time. And sometimes you got to be honest, because Maria, your first thought was, I don't want to go to the grocery store and I don't want to make casseroles. That was not the negative thought.
Right. It's right. It's identifying, it's feeling the emotion and identifying the thought that's causing the emotion. And I think once you've done that, like I could say the ridiculous thing that Jim will stop loving me if I don't make him 5 casseroles, then, once I said that, it was done. Oh, yeah. And then the further work of going, well, it actually might be a good thing, or, that was really helpful. So Yeah, lots of times we carry around kind of undefined depression and or anxiety, and we don't nail it. Kelly, you're really good at it. You're really good at it. I think maybe because you've been working on this, but
yeah, because I've been doing this, and truly it has helped me for a decade stay out of depression, stay out of the pit of depression.
Yeah.
And that's why we created, and we haven't even talked about it in this show, is the depression and anxiety toolkit for athletes, because you have to stay vigilant. You have to check your thoughts. You have to follow up. There are great tools in this toolkit. And one of the reasons we wanted to demonstrate CBT was to show that it really helps.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And it's entirely doable. It's not advanced stuff, and you could do it with yourself, or you could do it with your family,
or you can do it with an app. Yeah. With an app by yourself. So Maria, so our takeaway would be, what one or two of these cognitive distortions, but they come in all shapes and sizes. So I don't think I think the takeaway needs to be question every single negative thought that makes, when one is feeling badly, when you have that, why am I feeling this way? What it's always, the thought becomes the emotion, becomes the feeling.
Right. Oh yeah. We used to talk about the thoughts are like, they're like ships. They sail into your brain, and identifying them. I think some people tend to not, like, I mean, my tendency would be to just push it away, like resist, but to feel the feeling and identify the feeling under the thought underneath the feeling is so helpful. And you don't have to do the whole thing every day. It's like, do one in the morning or one at night,
Right.
And so.
Yeah. Even if we did one a day, because often it's the recurring, like I have that dad thought every single day. And now I'm going to question it. I'm going to push that, I'm going to push that thought away and say, you know what? I'm not going to fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and you may have a seasonal one like you're having, which is just, Jim's not going to love me this week if I don't make casseroles.
Right.
But, so there's some that are recurring and there's some are just that moment. So this was kind of fun, Maria.
And this is also what we can help do with our coaching. So if you're interested in coaching, we can help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you want to do it with us, we can do it.
Although clearly I'm not that good at it. If I can't do it my own.
I think you're very good at it. Yeah. Well, obviously it's,
it's a work in progress.
We need help. We need help sometimes to do things. So,
right.
All right. Very good.
Kelly, love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Champions Mojo podcast with host Kelly Pallas and Maria Parker. Champions Mojo is produced by Cabra Media, and a new episode debuts every Tuesday. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. Follow Champions Mojo on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook @Champions Mojo.